Okay, in this video I want to create a simple grade calculator that you could use for perhaps this course or another course that you might be taking. Let's go ahead and start by right-clicking on the desktop and selecting a new Excel file. Let's give it a name of grade calculator. Let's go ahead and open that sheet. So the first thing you might want to do, you might want to take a look at your course syllabus and recognize what grading categories that you have. Let's just make a little table with the grade categories. You'll have homework. Perhaps you'll have quizzes. Perhaps you will have a midterm and a final. And based on your syllabus, you'll have different weights to these categories. So let's assign the weights. Let's assign homework with 25%. Before we do, let's go ahead and format these cells as a percent. I'm going to say homework was 25%. Let's say quizzes are 10%. And since I want this total to equal 100, let's go ahead and insert a sum for the weighted categories here. So we have 35% remaining. Let's go ahead and make, we have 35% total, I should say. We have 30% for the midterm, and let's say 35% for the final. Let's go ahead and give some format to this table. I'm just going to put borders on everything, fill with a gray, bold, column, header, and perhaps I'll use the format painter to paint the total. So we have something like this. Now let's assume that we have, I guess we could start out with a last name. First name, I will use mine as I'm creating this data. So Young William. And let's go ahead and list all the assignments that we might have in a course. So let's use homework 1. Let's say we have 5 homeworks. If you notice, I'm actually taking the very first cell and dragging this by the corner piece of this cell, and it's extending the series out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice you can't see a lot of the information in the cell, so what I tend to do is hit this button here, which is between the A and the 1, which selects everything, and finding a column to double click in between and double clicking that so it auto expands or auto sizes the column width. So we have our homework assignments. Let's go ahead and list out our quizzes. Maybe we have just 2 quizzes, and our midterm, and a final. Okay, so everything is logically structured here. All the homeworks are grouped, all the quizzes, the midterms. And let's assume that all of these assignments are based on 100 points. To make this a little more robust, let's go ahead and list the point values of these assignments. So what I'm going to do, actually I'm going to leave this here, and I'm going to move this just down 1 location. What we could actually do is list out the points of all 100, and I might do some editing over here, but let's go ahead and put all these assignments at 100. This is going to be the points available, and I'm just going to delete the last name. Since this is an individual calculator, there's really no need to put your own name there. Let's go ahead and put your points earned here. So out of all these assignments, maybe we can generate some random scores here. One way to do that is to actually use the rand between. Let me just make a note on this. If you actually use your keyboard and you use your arrows to select down amongst all these formulas, if you select the one you want, you can actually hit tab, and tab will fill out the rest of the formula. Rand between will generate an integer between a bottom and top number. Let's generate some numbers, 75 score to 100. And I'm just going to fill this across. So you can choose to type in manually these numbers if you want to check your work. I'm going to paste special and go to values so the numbers don't change. And I want to apply some formatting, so I'm going to use the format painter here and use the format painter here and actually fill the rest in with a grid. So your spreadsheet should look something like this now. So now what we have to do is we have to accumulate all the points that we have for a homework category, a quiz category, and each test individually. So let's go ahead and up here summarize our points earned and our points available. And you could have done this either way. Maybe it makes more sense if we put earned the first row in our table and available the very last. So let's just switch those because I want to create a points earned and a points available. Just correcting that misspelling there. Okay. Use the format painter. Paint that format. Again, I use this autocorrect quite a bit. Let's give this some border around the cells. And now we could be very clever of how we actually would calculate the scores and attribute those to the grading category, but I want to keep this video a little simple. So let's take a total sum of the homework categories 1 through 5. We could again do this in a more dynamic fashion, but again I just want to keep this simple. The quiz sum up the total points earned. The midterm, let's reference the 100 that we got on the midterm and reference the 94 that we got on the final. Do the same thing with the points available. Let's do a sum of the homeworks. Enter equals the sum of the quizzes, and simply reference the total points available for the remaining exams. Okay, so at this point we know the percentage indirectly of what we earned for each of these categories. So let's just calculate the ratio. The percentage here of 391 points divided by 500. And we're going to go ahead and fill this down. I'm going to format this as a percentage. And now we need to calculate the weighted percentage. So what you might want to do is create another column. The weighted percentage is going to be based on this weight that we typed out for each category. So it's going to be 25% times the 78% that you averaged in your homework assignments. So in essence, you have earned 19.5 points for the homework category out of 100. So let's see what the remaining factors would be. We earned out of 10%, we got 8.25. Out of 30%, we got all 30 points. Out of 35, we got 32.9. So what we can do here, after I format this a little bit, let's show all percentages as 2 decimal places. What we can actually do is take a sum of all of these weighted factors to calculate our final weighted score. So with these grades, I know that my weighted score that a professor, an instructor might upload for you at your final grade would be a 90.7. Obviously, this isn't taking into account for rounding up or any kind of grade adjustments. One useful thing that you might want to do is that maybe you've completed all of these assignments except for the final, where this cell is going to be unknown. We just saw what the weighted calculation of the grade that we had in this cell would be, but maybe your goal is to use this spreadsheet to determine what you would need in order to raise your grade to maybe a 92% or maybe a 93%. So let's assume we don't have this score yet. We can actually start filling out numbers. Let's just see what happens if we get 100, which would be the best score, which produces a 92.8. Perhaps we can score 95, and if a professor actually rounds up to the next integer, this actually would equate to a 92. So you can use this strategy basically to give you an idea of what would be needed to score on a particular exam. And for that matter, maybe a quiz or a homework or something to that nature. So I'm going to undo this until we get back to our 90.7, our total score calculated. And in summary, basically we have weighted our categories. We have basically calculated the cumulative points earned for those categories. We took into account the total possible available for those categories, calculated the percent of points earned over available, and weighted those based on the initial weight of the category, and actually calculated the total score. Another way, just a quick note here, that you could have done this and wouldn't have necessarily needed to calculate these cells that I have highlighted is to use the sum product formula. Let me just show that quickly. So sum product, the weights, comma, the percent will produce exactly the same result as what we did manually. So you can do either way. Sometimes it's better to be more explicit and show your calculations in a stepwise fashion. Other times it's a nice idea to try to eliminate unnecessary data, unnecessary calculations. So with that being said, I will leave this example here. Thank you.